Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Rats on Film, the show where a bunch of film rats talk about and rank movies. Today in the show, we're doing something a little bit different. On some episodes, we've got superheroes. On some episodes, we've got dramas. But today, we have dragons. On the show with me today to talk about How to Train Your Dragon, I have Johnny.
Roar.
Madeline.
Thank you for nothing, you useless reptile.
Me?
Yeah.
What? And I'm your host, Xander. Welcome to the show, everybody.
You are kind of reptilian.
What do you mean?
I wouldn't think you were a dragon, but like maybe like a gecko.
A gecko? Can I be a turtle?
Yeah, okay. I can see that.
But I'm useless as well. That sucks. This sucks. I thought I was a rat. I got scales now. I'm a scaly rat.
And what is a scaly rat but a gecko?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, probably. Of the rat
Or like
world,
a
it would be
Terrible
like,
terror.
it would be like a little lizard guy.
Mhm.
All right, today on the show, we're giving some love to the DreamWorks animated series, How to Train Your Dragon, trilogy of films. There's a new one, a live action remake coming out this year, which is sort of an
Really?
inspiration to do.
Boo.
Yeah, I'm not into the live action remake
I
thing,
am.
but
Boo.
we're celebrating the animated trilogy.
15 years since the first movie.
Yeah, yeah, it's a little anniversary too.
I'm a live action remake apologist. And in this case, especially because it's Dean DeBlood doing it. And he said they're going to do it anyway. So I may as well step in and lead the way that I want to do it. And so
I guess that kind of makes sense.
I think I'm leaving it up to him, but I think it's in pretty good hands.
Yeah, I mean, he's...
It looks exactly the same.
It's
Yeah,
no,
I'm
there's
watching
literally like clips out there of people who have cut the exact shot for shot.
They're using the same score too.
I hope at least they're using most of it.
But what if they use that money to make a new thing instead?
Well, yes, but it just unfortunately seems to be the way that things are going these days, where they don't want to do that. So
It's been very often now that they're doing the live action remake, and it's kind of crazy with dragons because it's not that old.
yeah,
Like
And it's
they remade Snow White this year, and that's from
That's really
the
old.
30s.
I mean, they're doing Moana, and that came out like
Also crazy.
that's crazy.
But anyway, the animated films,
Yes,
the trilogy of films, really great. You two are the two people I know that are the biggest fans of them. And I'm also a big fan, though I missed the third one when it came out.
yeah, and so did Johnny.
And so, yeah, so did Johnny. But when
There's one true fan on this podcast.
when the originals came out, like the first one came
I'm
out,
a fake fan.
super into it. So we'll get into it. How to Train Your Dragon from 2010, directed by both Chris Saunders and Dean DeBlois.
Yeah, I absolutely love this movie. I think it's such a gorgeous little story, and I think a lot of people going into it, you wouldn't realize how heartwarming and special it's going to actually be when it turns out, because you're like, that's just a little kid movie. But then the whole story is just about like found family and establishing relationships with your friends, family, like your father. And I just think that the whole thing comes together in such a heartwarming and romantic way that you just can't help but feel like sucked into the deep emotional relationships, and that's carried across all of them. But they're really built in the first one because you really feel like at the start the Hiccup is such an outsider to the town, and he really wants to prove himself to his dad, but he can't do what everyone else is doing, so he uses his little genius brain, makes a trap, brings down the scariest, most ruthless dragon to ever come across Burke, and magic happens from there, basically.
Talk about false advertising on Toothless being the most
I
ruthless scary
know,
dragon
he's
ever.
just a little kitty cat.
He's just a little baby.
He's just a little baby. But you
that's
kind
what
of
the
do
movie's
see it, yeah.
about. Is that you think that they're bad, but they're not bad.
Exactly.
Yeah, define the expectations. Same for the Vikings.
Mhm.
No, the first one really is amazing.
Yeah, it has such a great heart to it that's just really encapsulated by the Toothless Hiccup relationship. That it just feels so genuine. The him reaching his hand out and Toothless touching it, like when that moment happens, and you're just like, wow, this is witnessing friendship happen.
It's just such a beautiful relationship, and they both find what they need in each other. Like no one else understands them. They're soulmates, really. And Hiccup helps Toothless, and they form this like symbiotic relationship where they really can't live without each other, because Toothless needs Hiccup to fly, and Hiccup needs Toothless to feel confident in himself, especially in the first one.
The way that their stories parallel throughout all three movies is really, really well done.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Hiccup's character in it, you touch on him being smart and that being what sets him apart. It's really great the way you see him throughout the movie where he's constantly looking at things from a new perspective that nobody else is. And they have all these ideas about the dragons and how scary they are and how to defeat them. And he's showing everybody that maybe they're wrong. And just because you've been told something your whole life doesn't mean that you should necessarily believe it. Like, question things and think for yourself a little bit. And I like that a lot in the movie.
Yeah, and that is just a really lovely message to have in a kid's movie, and it really transcends across all audiences. But another thing that I really love is, though Hiccup is so different and like Stoic really doesn't understand him at all, he's never like mean to him really, or like anything that could be, constituted as like an abuse for not fitting in or anything like that. The frustration between them is that they really just don't understand each other.
But that's what's like really well done about the movie, is that they set up everything so well. Like all of the characters it's a new world that you've never been to before. It's fantasy. It's like all these different things, but they set up everything and all the relationships so well that you instantly understand all the characters. And then they go on to really pay off all those relationships and all of those emotions that are set up from the very start.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The opening scene is kind of like a masterclass in setup. I know it has voiceover, which some people scoff at, but I think it's really effectively done in the movie.
But they don't overdo it to the point where it's like annoying. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You get the information you need. Everything feels natural. They feel like real people with real relationships. And the other thing that's great is that there isn't really a villain in the movie. Like, I guess you could be like, the dragon, the alpha dragon, is kind of the villain because it's scaring all the dragons and forcing them into this situation where they're attacking the people or the Vikings, and then the Vikings think that they're evil, blah, blah, blah. But really the villain is like the misunderstanding,
yeah,
you know what I mean, between the different characters.
Yeah, and the dragons misunderstanding the Vikings and the Vikings misunderstanding them, and them coming to a world to live in harmony together.
Sometimes movies like that are really satisfying because it's not about like defeating something. It's about where Stoic saves Toothless. Like that's maybe a more satisfying part than when they defeat the dragon. You know what I mean? And then the end, seeing all the dragons and the Vikings living together on the island. That's the satisfying part because they're overcoming their differences.
Yeah. And I think another thing that I love about them is they're not afraid to go deep and dark with emotions, with relationships, and also with, the stakes, because Hiccup loses his foot at the end. What other franchise would do that? Like, that just sets up the very start that happens in the first movie. Like, where are the stakes going to go from here? And, it's just such a parallel, obviously, for Hiccup and Toothless to have lost that part of themselves. And again, it just goes into them really needing each other to be able to function for that period of their lives. Just shows that the depth and stuff is really there, and it really does pay off from the stakes that you've discovered that this is like the most dangerous situation that these Vikings have been in.
Well, and they're willing to live up to the expectations that they're setting because it's a movie about killing and about violence. You know what I mean? And then I think other movies will do things like that, but then they won't actually follow through on the consequences that a conversation like that has. But it's nice that this movie does. Yeah. I read this book when I was a little kid.
Did you? How similar is it to the film?
Way before the movies came out. I don't fucking remember. I don't think it's similar at all.
The Toothless in the books is like one of those tiny, tiny little dragons.
The little guy.
Yeah. And I think he talks too. Yeah. I think he talks like the whole time.
He's like a little yapper.
And also, I'm pretty sure in the book, they are supposed to get dragons. It's not like they hate dragons.
You're right. Yeah, I remember.
I mean, it makes sense with the title.
Yeah, they just kind of took the title and the character and ran with it. But I love the designs of the dragons that they used. Everything looks amazing. The
Burke is cool, yeah.
And they've recreated it exactly in the theme park that's coming out this year, that's opening up this year. But the dragon designs are also cool and different. The colors of everything are so vibrant and beautiful. And then, again, the score just plays into everything so well. It just elevates and lifts every scene. And, in a movie about dragons, there's always going to be flying and it's going to be exhilarating and cool. But, like, having that John Powell score just lifting everything up, like on Test Drive, when it just really...
good.
Talking about the score and the flying, one of the best scenes in the first movie is when him and Toothless are flying with their new invention of the tail wing for the first time through the rocks, and he like loses the directions on how to control the tail mechanism. I think that's one of the best scenes in the whole movie.
Yeah, so good. It really just all comes together, and he just throws it to the wind, and they just become like one entity, the two of them just understanding each other completely.
And believing in each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the all-time best movie scores, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, the characters too, all the characters are really great. I think the voice cast is also really, really top notch in this.
They got McLovin.
They got McLovin. Yeah, Christopher Mintz-Plasse is here. All the side characters are great. I mean, huge cast there. But then America Ferrera is Astrid.
Craig Ferguson.
Gerard Butler. Jay Baruchel. They do a really great job as like the core of it.
I love that they all have such unique voices as well, and they just bring that essence to the character. Like, who would Hiccup be if he wasn't speaking like Jay Baruchel?
If he didn't say "bud" every 5 seconds.
What are the rides at the park going to be again?
So there's a roller coaster that has a huge toothless animatronic in it. There's a boat ride where you are like fighting fires that dragons have made appear. And then there's just like a carnival sort of gliding ride. So
no train?
Train?
I don't know how to train your dragon.
I guess a roller coaster is a kind of train, right?
Does it go choo-choo?
I guess not.
Can't confirm.
Kind of a disappointment.
I can't confirm. The park's not open yet.
You got a boat, you got a plane, but no train in the train movie.
All right, we'll start this one on the top.
Yeah.
Next up, How to Train Your Dragon 2, 2014. Good sequel.
Feels like an important part about training a dragon is you got to have one parent only.
You think so?
Uh-oh. The balance is challenged in this one.
As soon as you have two parents, it doesn't go very well.
No. Once Kate Blanchett enters the picture. Sorry to Gerard
do any of the
Butler.
other characters have two parents? I didn't see any.
I don't think we see any of their parents ever.
I think Snotlout's dad is in it.
Okay.
Because he just looks
you
exactly
see
the
him
same
a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But he doesn't. Does he have a wife? I don't know. Where's Mrs. Snotlout?
That's what I'm saying. One parent only. Rule number 1.
Maybe that's just Viking rules.
It's just so tough to, like, because you get the emotional payoff of, like, what they have, what Stoic and Hiccup, like, the understanding that they have come to. And this is 5 years after the first movie. And it's still, he's still young. And then the way that the relationship moves forward as they find Hiccup's mother that went missing when Hiccup was a baby, and it just, for a second, the whole family is happy and healthy. And then, again, like, the fact that they use Toothless in that way, it's so heartbreaking for him to turn around on the man who saved him and really was the one that welcomed him into the tribe.
Yeah, I think it's really great sequel progression. I think a problem a lot of sequels have is that you make a first movie and you come up with a character, that character has a flaw, and you give them an arc. Pretty standard. And then when you get to the end, the character has changed and they no longer have that flaw, or they've learned something about that flaw. And then when you get to the sequel, you go, well, shit, we only gave them one flaw. Like, what do we do now? I think this movie does a great job building as it goes along from the first one, where Stoic almost feels like a new character in this movie. Like, he's completely changed his perspective. He's really like hyping Hiccup up. He's really encouraging him. And now the conflict between them isn't that they don't understand each other. It's that they do, but they just want different things from the understanding. And I think it works really, really well.
Yeah, there doesn't feel like there's any like hard resets on any of the characters. And, again, like the Hiccup and Astrid relationship, like they've grown up, they're still together. They're like little teenage in love, but they're on the precipice of like having to mature into like their senior positions in the town. But another thing that I really love is that in every scene you see that their dragons have also grown with them. Like they have relationships of their own, the dragons together and the dragons with each other's people and all that kind of thing.
It's funny you guys bring that up because that was my main talking point too about the sequels, specifically the second one, but honestly all three of them, is that they don't revert the characters back from their character arcs. So many sequels do that, where they will make the character unlearn what they learned and then relearn it again. Every sequel, all the characters grow and they feel different, just like you said. And then now they're facing new challenges that make sense for their character. Like in the first one, it's all about Hiccup believing in himself and fighting for what he believes in and standing up to his town and to his father. And then he's successful in that, right? And then in the second one, the natural progression is he's like, yeah, I could talk people into anything. Like I have this newfound confidence that I could convince this other guy who's trying to control the dragons that he shouldn't do that dragons are calm, nice creatures and they don't want to fight. And then he fails through that but it makes sense that he would think. Do you know what I mean?
That naivete from what he learned in the first one.
And then he goes on a new arc about how you have to protect your own people. You can't be so, loose with danger, Not everything is always going to work out.
Yeah, I like as well, you brought this up in the first one, Johnny, that the first movie doesn't really have a villain. Again, talking about introducing new challenges, creating a new world. So now we've set up that the dragons are not the villain of the movie. So, like, what is the natural progression for an antagonist? And now you actually have a person who is sort of like the opposite of Hiccup. Like, he's learned humans should work with dragons, but he believes in a form of subjugation for world domination, not in terms of like living harmoniously.
And I think that's a natural message progression as well, where the first one, the message is sometimes people are misunderstood, sometimes creatures are misunderstood, violence isn't always the answer. The second one is about how, yeah, but not everybody is going to train a dragon to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a parallel to real life.
Yeah, and just humanity in general. Like, there's always going to be people who are doing the wrong things.
This one also, because of that, like in the first one, you really don't know if there's anyone else in the world at all. But in this one, you see other lands, other people, even, like villainous people. You see beautiful dragon lands, and then you find Hiccup's mum living there. So there are other livable places. Like, it just makes sense that the story would be expanding outside of Berk, and you find out so much. You learn more lore about the world and about what dragons can do, and about like what types of dragons there are and what rules that they have to their society. And it just sort of all comes together to just be this bigger, wider, more vibrant kind of story with a really, really emotional ending. And that's what has stood out to me. They weren't just like, we're going to reset everyone, it's going to be Kitty again. Like, they really planned out the whole thing. And this is just the perfect middle part to like bring the story towards its end. And it has like just such emotional ups and downs as well. I just think the whole thing is so well rounded.
You do get Big Dog Alpha Toothless at the end, which is pretty sweet. And Hiccup being able to break through to him is a nice emotional moment that really harkens back to the first one of when Hiccup first finds him in that little ditch, that he really doesn't trust him and he has to work on it to break through to him. So it's a nice callback to that as well.
They do a lot of callbacks, and they're always, none of them are ever like whack on the nose. Like, remember this from the first movie? They're all like, they just sort of make sense with where the story is and where the characters are going. And it just makes sense for the two of them to be the chiefs of their respective tribes.
I will say, as one critique of this movie, is I don't think that the mom is the most likable character, and they introduce her, and I like understand the good elements of it, that it's like she also loves dragons, and maybe that's where Hiccup got it from, and it helps him kind of understand who he is a little more, but also appreciate his father more on the other hand when his father dies. Like, I think all of that works well. But she kind of sucks a little bit.
She is
just like as a person.
Well, she's kind of one of those people who she saw that they were doing the wrong thing and just said, well, I'll just leave and let them do the wrong thing and I'll go do the right thing. And sometimes people would argue that that's just as bad as doing the wrong thing, as letting people.
Sort of like the opposite of Stoic, where like they both really they're set in their ways and they're different ways, but they both are just like, no, this is the way, like this is the only way. So Hiccup is really the one who does have the best of both of his parents and can bring them together, and that's why he's such a good leader.
No, you're right. It does help strengthen Hiccup's character,
absolutely.
Because then at the end too, because part of the message of the movie is like, you have to protect your own. That's like the dad's message to Hiccup, right? That he adopts. The mom does not do that, right? It's him seeing the good in his mom, seeing the good in his dad, but also tweaking it and becoming his own person who is the best of both worlds. You're right.
He's going to protect his own people, and he's going to protect the dragons.
Yeah, I kind of see, I agree with you though. Like, I'm just kind of like, I am happy that she's there, and I love that Hiccup found that more about himself, but it is still more about him and his dad's relationship, and it always will be.
But I guess like she's not likable, but also it's not about her. It's about Hiccup and Toothless. Exactly. You know what I mean? And her being there does aid their growth.
Where do you guys want to put 2?
2.
Number 2 for you, Johnny?
Yeah, number 2.
Yeah, I agree. I like 1 more.
It's close though.
It is close.
Like,
they're all close.
Very consistent with the first one.
Yeah, it really is, and it builds really well off of it. It feels everything moves in a really consistent, positive direction forwards. The animation is nicer. You know, the character growth is good. It's
I like the dragon wingsuit.
Yeah, that's sick.
That's sick. I love when they reveal him, like the older version of him at the start, like when they have the song going and like he like takes off his thing and you're like, oh, it's like the start of High School Musical.
It's funny. It's relevant too for the third one, but watching them close to each other for the first time ever in my life crazy how much he ages
Yeah.
in them that I just never thought about when I watched them 5 years apart. You're like, yeah, that's what Hiccup looks like in my
Yeah.
head. All right, last up on the list for today, How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World from 2019.
Just call it 3.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
kind of strange that they didn't give the second one a title, but they gave this one a title.
I just think it would have been better as 3.
Yeah, would have been consistent.
As established, Johnny and I, fake fans, missed this one when it came out.
No, it's a good one though. It's good. I enjoyed
It's
it.
good.
This one
watching
is
it for the
good.
First time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always had in my brain like the second one's so good because of like I just remember it making me so emotional. But this one does too. Like at the end of this, I'm fully sobbing. It's so emotionally rewarding, the end of this movie, and just like the way that you come to the end of the story and say goodbye to these characters. Like it never feels like they left it because they needed to do more one day or they didn't have a plan going in. Like everything is just really, really rounded to become like a full circle story.
Yeah, you talk about like a good arc in a movie, and this is such a good arc for a trilogy. I think from the start, Hiccup's opening monologue in the first film to the end, his closing monologue in this one, it has, yeah, it's maybe not quite this level, but it feels like the Toy Story trilogy where you're just like, wow, what a great bookend on either side of the series, and the progression of the characters from start to finish just feels really earned and really great.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this movie does have some flaws in it, like maybe a few more than the other two for me. But I will say, like on what you guys are saying, it wraps up the story and finishes it off so well that I almost forgive the few flaws that I have because it services the trilogy really well as an ending.
Yeah.
What I will say about this one is, again, this one does have an actual proper villain, unlike the first one, but like the second one. I think I like this villain more than the second one. I think
he's better.
The villain in the second movie is just like tough,
He's a
yeah, just tough guy who, proves to Hiccup that not everybody is like him. I think in this movie, the villain challenges Hiccup in really interesting ways, and specifically in ways where Hiccup is learning to be without Toothless. Like you said, they need each other in the first movie and in the second movie, and the villain is actually a catalyst for showing Hiccup that he needs to be able to do things on his own.
Yeah, the other guy, Drago, he's just a brute. Like he's just a bully. Whereas in this one, he
just wants power.
He just wants power, and in this one, there's so many motivations that he has for working against Hiccup and separating him from Toothless. And I do like that you do get to let Toothless live his own life for a little bit. Like he gets a bit of character development. He falls in love, and it's just like a really lovely story for him. But he really struggles being without Hiccup as well.
They also have a nice parallel between the villain and Hiccup where he's like, I killed a Night Fury. That was the first chance I got. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like maybe Hiccup would become someone like him had
definitely.
He killed Toothless in the very first movie. Like there's a clear parallel there.
Yeah, you're so right. That is very interesting to think about. Is he's smart, he's intelligent, he's got all these inventions and stuff like that, just like Hiccup does.
Yeah.
He's just the evil path of Hiccup, basically. Yeah. I also think in this movie, it's the best use of the side cast. Yeah. I love all the Rough Nut and Tough Nut are great in this one.
So
Snot Lout is in love with Hiccup's mom. It's just so good.
Yeah, I do. It is kind of annoying that they brought Hiccup's mom in to be this whole huge character in the second one, and like she's barely in the third one. But I also
because she kind of sucks.
Well, exactly. They realized we're like, well, we'll sideline her a little bit, but you do again. Even though Stoic is dead, you still develop that relationship between him and Hiccup. Like you see flashbacks, things that
the flashbacks
Stoic,
with him are really good.
Yeah, that Stoic has taught Hiccup and that are coming true in his life now. Like that still showing him how to lead, which is another really emotional thing.
Yeah, you said this about the second one, Johnny, but he learns the importance of protecting his people, and then he sort of furthers that in this movie where it's like the important part is that we're together. It's not where we live. It's that we're together, and they leave their home, and that's very emotional for people, but his mentality is, I have to protect everybody and keep everybody together. And as long as we're together, we're safe, and that's what matters.
Talking about in the second one how the arc makes sense. Now in the third one, at the beginning of the third one, he's like, we have to get as many dragons as possible because there's bad people out there and we'll treat them well. Their island is completely overrun. You see that from the first 10 seconds of the movie, right?
Yeah. Like
right when they first show Burke that there's way too many dragons now. It's not sustainable. And they're also inviting danger basically because they have so many dragons and so much perceived power. And then throughout the movie you're saying like he's trying to keep everybody together, but he's bending over backwards and he's not really thinking about what's best for every individual. He's just so used to having this great life where everybody's together and happy, but sometimes you have to let people go and you have to let things go so that they can flourish on their own.
Yeah, it is a great message and it works really well. And like you said, it's shown, right? You can actually see the way that Burke is, that this is not sustainable anymore.
But just like as Hiccup learns too, it just always makes sense. You know what I mean? Like what he does always makes sense.
Yeah, and he listens to people and he learns from them and he thinks over his decisions and he really just tries to do what's best for everyone. But there are so many parallels to conversations and scenes in other movies, like with Astrid when she's like, "What are you going to do about it?" And he's like, that's exactly from the
Something
first movie.
stupid.
Exactly. But it shows that he's the same person, but he's changed so much in the same way.
I love Astrid in this movie too, because I feel like
Yeah, she's really good in this movie.
throughout all the films, she doesn't have super big parts in any of them, but I like her role in this movie where she's not even there to save Hiccup or help Hiccup. All she needs to do is like give him the nudge, right?
Yeah.
He is fully capable of being on his own and leading everybody. It's just that little bit of self-belief that he doesn't have, and she believes in him, and all she has to do is just that little push in the right direction, and she's so like understanding and patient with him about it. And I think that it's a really great dynamic that the two of them have as they've grown through the three movies.
Yeah, like she was the first one to believe in him and she'll be there till the very end. But it is wild to see how, like at the very start, the entirety of Burke is like this little kid, this little runt, like he's just like an outcast. But by the end, they all love him and fully respect him, and they respect him not just because he has Toothless with him, but just because of the way that he has developed into such a strong leader.
Well, and again, it's something that's earned. It's not at all contrived. Like, you see it from all the movies. Like, Astrid does believe in him from the very first movie, all the way through the second movie, all the way through the third movie. So when she's demonstrating that and telling him you need to believe in yourself, you don't need Toothless, you're more than you think you are. Like, you actually know that she's telling the truth. You've seen it for multiple movies.
Yeah, I think the climax in this one is pretty strong. The saving of Toothless and the Light Fury finally coming around and saving Hiccup and getting on board with him.
Yeah, that was good.
It's a really nice moment. It's a good payoff from the movie where the whole time she's kind of just giving him side eye.
Yeah.
And then she realizes, oh, I can trust him the way that Toothless does.
I kind of think that the romance part of this movie with like the Light Fury is a little bit forced into like a cliche that a lot of animated movies have. But I do think that the movie still sticks the landing with everything because the emotional relationships between like Hiccup and Toothless and Astrid and Hiccup are so well done. But
they're definitely leaning into the cuteness here. No, I agree with you. There's a lot. There's long
it's like
scenes.
an animation cliche.
And sometimes I'm kind of like, we could have just like one less dance maybe.
Yeah.
But
yeah, exactly.
They've got like 3 kiss the girl scenes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the other thing that really, really bothered me about this movie is the art direction changed their faces and made their faces super smooth.
Yeah, they're kind of like
face
fuzzy
and Astrid
animated.
Smith, they look like they are skin influencers on Instagram. And it's crazy because if you look at the other movies, like they have, Hiccup has freckles. He has a scar. It's a plot point that he has a scar on his chin. It's not there in the third movie because their skin is so smooth and so perfect. I think it also hurts the animation because of the rendering style. Like, because the animation is really good, but then when their skin is so smooth, it looks a little bit off sometimes.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing when I watched it last night. I was like, on the like close-ups of their face, and they just kind of look like they have the TikTok beauty filter on.
Yeah.
And
it's such a weird choice. They're Vikings.
Weird. Yeah.
They're trying to push this romance thing, and they're like, oh, everything has to be smooth. Everything has to be pretty. And it's like, but you're kind of losing track of what this is. It's dragons and Vikings. Like, I don't know. That bothered me a lot. But to go back to the positive, I do think that the end of this movie is like actually amazing.
Yeah, it's so good.
The way that they connect it to the real world, which previous to watching these, I always just thought it was a fantasy world.
Like,
but they connect it to the real world being like, this is where the Legends of Dragons came from.
Yeah.
Super cool.
And they're real Vikings and they just moved on. And then they're all older and they meet up again and they both have families and have moved on and they still get to have this beautiful moment. Like, it's really, really well done.
Yeah, it's so great.
So emotional. So sad.
All right, where do you guys want to put 3?
I mean, I'd probably put it 3. I really think the ending is like amazingly good. So good, the last scene. But I just think that the movie as a whole, I really like it. I would still give like it like a 9 out of 10, honestly. I just think it's a little bit worse than 2.
I would put it 2, I think. I do kind of agree. Maybe it's not as tight as the other 2 films are, but I think the way that it wraps up the trilogy, I think they did a really great job with it. So I'll put it at number
that's
2.
why it's so hard.
It is really
Because
hard.
it does end so well.
They're all so close. And again, like we've talked about so much across this whole podcast, is that it really is a trilogy. Like the entire thing is wrapped up so well together that it's really hard to sort of separate them and rank them. But I think I have to put it 3 as well.
3 as well. All right. Release order.
God. Just downhill from the start.
But they're all just like barely separate from each other.
Like little tiny
little
steps.
tiny.
It really is so consistent.
Yeah, it's a great
through the
trilogy.
3. Like you would never be like, oh, the third one sucked. It does not suck. It's a great movie.
Yeah, it's really good. So the Rats on Film official ranking for the How to Train Your Dragon films, starting from the bottom, objectively in our opinion: How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, How to Train Your Dragon 2, and The Big Cheese: How to Train Your Dragon.
If you guys had dragons, what would you name them?
What would I name my dragon? Firetail.
Oh, that's really good.
Thanks.
I don't think I can come up with anything on the spot like that.
What would you do, Johnny?
I don't know. Probably Scale Time.
Scale
Scale time.
Madeline?
No, you can't. You can't.
All you gotta do is think of a dragon word and then a random word.
I'd call mine Lots of Teeth.
Many teeth.
Tooth Haver.
Full.
Yeah, too full. There you go. Wow, both of you at the same time. All right, thanks for listening to Rats on Film, everybody. Tell a friend about the show where a bunch of little rats talk about and rank movies about dragons.
Hey, tell an enemy.
Yeah, tell an enemy. That's fine. Tell someone you don't like. If you didn't like the podcast, tell someone you don't like. If you liked it, tell someone you do like.
Yeah, send it to someone you hate so then they suffer.
Rank us 5 stars on your podcast platform of choice. You can follow us on social media, Rats on Film Pod. We'll post this list on Letterboxd and all the future lists there as well. And we will be back in 2 weeks to talk about and rank some more movies. Bye, buds.
Bye.